the M-Bridge, which is the cross-border payment system that allows countries in the BRICS nations to trade across border free from SWIFT intervention, which is largely Chinese technology. It was developed by China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the UAE. Saudi Arabia became the fifth partner in it, and it was all done through cooperation with the BIS Innovation Hub, which is a Western institution and the most powerful bank on the planet. And at the 12th hour, when they were rolling it out, the BIS pulled out and said, we can't be part of any technology that would allow these countries to sidestep Western sanctions. And it pissed off the BRICS really badly. And now it's called just BRICS Bridge, and they no longer have that affiliation with the BIS that they did. Who knows where things are going? All I can say is that we are moving from a system that is based solely upon trust on a bankrupt nation and their treasuries, which can be sanctioned and taken from you. And we're creating debt right now at a clip of $1 trillion over the last 71 days. I mean, that's just unsustainable. So at some point, things are going to break. Don't know what it is. And so when you had mentioned to me the IMF and Kristalina Georgieva.
Well, let me quote. They said, buckle up. It's going to be, and they just said this within the last 2 weeks, buckle up. It's going to get rough. They said, buckle up. I don't remember what else they said behind that, but essentially it's going to get rough.
Right. And Kristalina Georgieva, I have cited her repetitively, and I'm looking at the article right now, and where she says straight up uncertainty is the new normal and look around, I would say to you, she's right. It is. You got wars all over the place, trade wars with China, supply chains breaking, government shut down, inflation. They're going to lower rates again, right? But they haven't hit their 2% inflation target in like 55 straight months. They're 50% away, and that's okay. They call it tepid, but you're 50% away from your target. That means you're giving up on inflation. By the way, that 3% level is a lie. We know this. John Williams of Shadow Stats, who just measures it the way they used to, would say it's 11. But even at 3%, which is a bunch of crap, they're going to lower rates again, pouring gasoline and giving up on the dual mandate, in essence, by letting inflation run hotter to, stabilize the employment market. But who knows? Who knows? It's devaluing the dollar, and that's what this is all about: saving in dollars, and you're in big trouble. But the IMF says to the governments, in essence, get your act together. Build up your savings, modernize your systems, support innovation and trade. Sounds great in theory. Right now, 60% of this country, Sarah, has a reading proficiency of no higher than the 6th grade. That's true.
I know, 60% of this or something percent. Yes. Oh my God.
And 60% it doesn't have a college education, and people can't write out a check for $500, and we're broken, we're insolvent, and so
they're not listening to this program.
No, and that's why I think Trump is doing what he's doing. And we've talked about my thesis of bringing back manufacturing and how it would have to happen. But a massively devalued dollar, a bond market in the back end pegged to gold, and the Genius Act, which will, whenever people move money, provide synthetic demand for U.S. treasuries and run the front end of the market. The interesting part about that is that Tether, who is making all the profit between the treasury issuance and the stablecoin issuance, they get to keep it. They can't transfer it. They're buying gold and Bitcoin, and gold will go to the moon so they can devalue the dollar and peg it to the back end of the bond market. And I believe they'll let Bitcoin run and constantly pull the rug on it in order to pay down the debt. That's just my own opinion.
Yeah, they're going to pull the rug on it. When do you think we'll really start seeing this happen? Because right now it really seems it's in hyper planning stage, or they're moving on it, but they're building it. We're not seeing the turnover yet.
Once you see it, it's too late.
I know, but
if I've had any success,
they're going to pull the rug on a Friday before a weekend kind of thing.
Of course, that's how it always happens. And if I have had any excess or just stupidity, is that I would say things that people wouldn't about the BRICS and all these things that I've said and largely have been proven correct on a large level. And I will tell you that I think it is happening. You just have to connect the dots, and I think it is happening right now. And that's the massive importing of gold and silver into the country. That's the kind of things that we see in the middle of the night when the market is closed.
So that's all dumping. The movements. That's all the movements to create what it is. And then all of a sudden they'll cut over on a Friday night.
Yeah, I mean,
or do you think it won't cut over quickly? Do you think it'll be a slow, like it is now, slow until it just kind of burns out?
Well, that's my favorite. That's why That's why I call my own personal podcast Little by Little. It speaks of logarithmic decay, little by little by little by little, then bang, all at once. And so it is happening, and the question is, how does it all play out? What happens if there's a new administration, a Democratic administration that comes in, and into the next election cycle? Who knows? There's a lot of who
Well, and
knows. And
how do we, I mean, because what happens, the Democrats don't have to be dominant at this, but they've historically have been. They align with interests that aren't for the betterment of the American people when it comes to financial type issues. They only focus on social issues with their base because their base does not even think about economic issues. And then we get these yahoos that come in and we don't even know what the hell they're doing. They're actually, the last time it looked like with Biden, it looked like they were doing it on purpose because it was too stupid to be stupid.
that's right. Well, and during his administration, Jared Bernstein, his lead economic advisor, said that we should no longer be the reserve currency in the report he wrote called Dethrone King Dollar. He's right. Same thing that Vice President Vance just said. They are trying, it's no longer because of Triffin's dilemma, which is very valid. You will never have a manufacturing. And that's why I believe they are doing a lot of this to a degree on purpose to massively devalue the dollar to reshore manufacturing, because with the lack of education in this country and the spread between, if you don't live in California or New York, I mean, California for IT and New York for financial assets, that's where all the wealth is in this country. And I'm generalizing, but everywhere else in between, you're looking at a massive space between the haves and the have-nots. The people with assets have made a fortune over the last 5-6 years, and the people with none are watching their cost of living accelerate dramatically and having a hard time making ends meet. So something has to be done, and we can't be reliant on the rest of the world to make our pharmaceuticals, from aspirin to penicillin, and our aircraft components and our military. So he is trying to do this, I believe, and you have to massively devalue the dollar. And we can dig more into this on future episodes. But all I am simply saying to you is that it is happening. And it's one of these deals where you can't tell the world this is what we're doing. Most people would have said they have two choices: inflate or default. And this is choice number 3: slowly default on the reserve status to devalue the dollar to bring back your manufacturing. And how do you bring back manufacturing? Give up on world reserve, massively devalue the dollar. The Stablecoin Act will continue to buy gold with the profit between the issuance of the stable coins and the treasuries backing them. They cannot transfer that interest. They keep it. They buy gold, they buy Bitcoin. Both devalue the dollar massively. You peg gold and maybe even Bitcoin, but probably just gold, to the back end of the treasury market, as Judy Shelton said Trump will do next July 4th. Now you have a 20, 30, and she said even a 50-year treasury with zero coupon, no interest rates, redeemable in gold in 20, 30, and 50 years. And you can bring back manufacturing with zero borrowing costs.
That's the responsible thing to do. The fact that they're
It's the only thing they can do.
Yeah, it's the fact, but it's responsible. The fact that they're actually moving to that. But the last administration, Biden administration, didn't even bother with it. I mean, who were they? I mean, the fact
it seemed to me that they were trying to find they were trying to find a villain, and that villain would have been Xi Jinping and OPEC, and
they were going to let it fail and just point to a villain and just abandon
and reset the system. And the number 2 economic advisor under knucklehead Jared Bernstein, I call him a knucklehead, even though I agree with his dethrone King Dollar position. If you Google him trying to go to X and watch him try to explain the issuance of treasuries, it was truly the most humiliating thing I've ever seen for anyone in that position to say on camera. But the number 2 economic advisor underneath him was Lael Brainerd. She was at the Treasury. She's a modern monetary theorist. Then she went to the Boston Fed, and when Biden passed the executive order to fast track the development of the CBDC, she developed it in conjunction with the Fed and MIT. So she was all about issuing a central bank digital currency. And the only way to do that would be to, I believe, let the system fail, the banks blow up, and blame it on those sons of bitches who dumped the dollar in the world reserve currency. And OPEC, how could they do it to us? That's what it seemed like to me. But in essence, I think Trump wants to do the same thing, only more responsibly. There is no easy way to do this. And I always talk about Shawshank Redemption, where Andy Dufresne had to crawl through 2 miles of crap to get to the other side. There is bright, a little bit of
Good.
brightness on the other side, but we have to go through this period to bring back manufacturing. And it could very easily lead to universal basic income because people who don't have assets who are saving in dollars will be in big trouble, if I'm right. And that's why you're seeing the biggest money in the world, I believe, go on a massive binge to accumulate and physically hold their gold. It's changing.